Why don't we call the meeting of the Urbana Civilian Police Review Board to order. Roll call, Tony, please.
Tom Costello.
Yep.
Ricardo Diaz. Scott Dossett. Diane Gottheil.
Yes.
James McNeely.
Here.
And Ivy Williams.
Here.
There are four of us. We do have a quorum. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Hope you all had a lovely Thanksgiving. Approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Staff report.
So I've included a memo from November 26th that basically shows the cases that we've had in the previous 12 months, as well as a table. Does anyone have any questions on that? Here, I can give you mine. To my understanding, we don't have any more complaints filed in the 3 weeks that have passed since the meeting, or since the scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions on that, Jim? Todd, do you have anything else?
In terms of staff report, I have something under new business.
Okay.
It may be easier for me to explain it now,
All right.
but that would constitute a change in the agenda, so I'm happy to do it later.
Does anybody have a problem with him doing that now?
No.
So basically, under new business, I have discussion of classification of complaints. I think everyone's been in to take a look at the complaints over the years. And at some point, if you look in this report, we actually classify the complaints as different. Actually, I should say I actually classify the complaints under different incident types. What I'm suggesting is that it would probably be much better if I could do that with two of you, so that we could make sure that there's some type of...
We're calling it what we think, if somebody else is helping you call it what it is.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So I'll leave that to your discretion, but I wanted to bring that up because I think that would really strengthen the process overall.
What would be the procedure?
So the procedure is we would sit down with the complaints, we would read through them, and basically we would discuss what the complaint should be classified in the, I think it's 16 or so different categories, so that at least there's more than just me sort of looking at them, sort of saying one thing. It introduces a way to sort of deal with some inherent bias issues.
Do we need
You need volunteers.
Well,
Motion.
I'll be happy to take, I really don't have a problem with us helping him do that, and I think that would be probably in our best interest. Do we have people that want to volunteer? And why don't we do this? Why don't we just sit there and say, all right, two of you will do it for a year, and then we'll have two other people do it for a year, and that way no one's, is that okay with you?
That's fine. What day, when would you do it, or what? Or rotate it month?
We'll just schedule monthly meetings, because what I'd like to do is go through a backlog back to 2008.
So instead of staying
So-
a year, you could do it
Okay,
monthly.
so that'll take.
We could do it monthly.
Going forward, what do we have typically, if we have 20 in a year, that's
Yeah,
probably a
it's
lot.
very minimal going forward.
Do I have any volunteers?
I'll go ahead and volunteer. I'll volunteer.
Okay.
as
We
needed?
have Diane and Ivy. And that's great.
Thank you.
I would suggest if we schedule something and one of you can't make it, why don't you have Todd get a hold of us and see if another member
Right.
of the board could fill in, so that we don't sit there and hold things up.
But do we have a family, a phone tree of each other's numbers? So instead of putting that on Todd, we could probably do that. Or
Well, we could just send out an email.
Todd makes a lot of
there
money.
you go, email.
Yeah, we could just send out an email. And what I will say is this, I could imagine this probably would be something, I know Scott's been really interested in the cases. So at some point, he may want to jump in too if one of you want to trade off with him.
Well, if he wants to.
But I won't volunteer him,
Yeah,
I'm just
no,
saying.
no, but if he says something he really wants to do, I defer.
Okay.
to-
What else?
That's all I had, and that was in relation to the staff report.
Okay. Public participation?
I guess I could make a comment or two, but I don't know if it's even appropriate because I'm not sure exactly what is going to be discussed under the line item of announcements. But I do, and Todd likely is to expound on it. And I'm sure the Civilian Police Review Board is aware of the traffic stop data reports that have been coming to the city for the past 9 years. And the fact that the Urbana City Council on November 18th, at the behest of 8 community organizations, the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, the ACLU, CU Citizens for Peace and Justice, the Black Ministerial Alliance, Jobs with Justice, petitioned the City Council to form an independent task force to look at the traffic stop data on behalf of the city. And I know when this was discussed or presented to the Citizens Police Review Board in the past, there was some question about the fact that the board could not address this issue because they didn't have the authority in city ordinance to do that. So what I would like to suggest or ask you to do is to endorse and support the City Council's effort in establishing this task force if you should be asked that. They're going to be discussing, my understanding, on Monday night, the parameters of this particular task force and the composition of this task force. The community groups feel it's extremely important that this be an independent task force that's composed of city staff and police officers, and also community members outside of the city staff or city commissions. And we hope that that composition can become part of it so that this group can work with the city to address this issue. And as you discuss this later, or as Todd talks about it, if you feel it would be appropriate to support the city council to ensure that they move forward on this, I think it would be helpful and something appreciated by the community, and especially in the context of making sure that the composition is diverse and that it includes community representation when they establish it. That's what I had to add.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback on Gerald Cruz's comments, I said this to the city council, and I'll say it to you as well. I think this is an important avenue to pursue, this independent and with citizen participation to deal with these traffic stops, because whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, the perception of Urbana citizens is that the police have it out for black folks when it comes to these traffic stops. Now, whether we like it or not, or whether we believe it or not, that is the perception. The second reason I think it's really important to deal with this is it's not fair to the police to merely suit up in a uniform and already, by virtue of having that uniform on, you're already perceived as a racist. And so I think it's really important for both sides, for everyone concerned, that we exercise our due diligence and really understand why it is Northwestern keeps putting out statistics that indicate that the Urbana Police Department is racially profiling black drivers in Urbana year after year after year. So 9 years in a row, actually. And the other thing that I really want to stress to this body is that it's important that citizens be allowed a voice into this process. Any circling of the wagons, any closing off the public from this process is going to look funny. So I would hope, again, to echo what Gerald just said, that you support it and that we can move forward with everybody's good, interests at heart. Because I think we have the technology and we have the know-how to really get at these stops and understand why Northwestern keeps discovering that it's out of balance.
Can we have your name? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris Evans.
Can we get a, just for the minutes, can we get a, if you got an address we can use?
Ward
Daryl, we
4.
know how to get a hold of.
Ward 4, and.
Okay, thanks. That's good, just so we have a way to get a hold of it, okay. Thank you. Okay. Community Outreach Subcommittee?
We met a few times. We talked about the need for us to all be on the same page when we make presentations. And would you like to be in charge of?
Not really. One of the things we did find out when we started to sit down and gather the information is that it was all there. So we decided, why recreate the wheel? Again, we tried very hard not to impose on Todd. He's so busy, but of course he's always so willing to come forth and help us out. We went and we got the information that we made some time ago when we first became a group, I guess, organization. And we passed out some of these flyers. I remember passing them out at Market Day or something. So we had the information, and basically what we did, it was right there. We decided to, with Todd's help, we sat down and we put it in the form of a PowerPoint, so that when we do go out and speak, the information is there, and we encourage all of us to go by the information that's there, because it's what we agreed upon and it's the purpose of the committee, and that way we'd be all on the same page. And if anything should come up that we probably can't answer, we may need to write that down and, get the answer so that we all can have that answer for the next time we go out. So we can go through the PowerPoint. We can read some of it, flip through it fast, but we're all here reading. That's one of the things I have trouble with when we do a PowerPoint, is doing a lot of the reading, but this is what we decided we would go with. The presentation objectives: familiarize the community with the purpose of the Urbana Civilian Police Review Board, UCPRB, explain how the complaint process works, and discuss the UCRB's role, answer questions regarding the UCPRB's role, and take suggestions regarding the UCPRB's community outreach activities. Purpose of the policy. Again, all of this is what we decided sometime, and we would again go through that purpose and give the organization or whatever we're working with, probably would ask them to follow along with us and hold questions until the end, so that we could go steadfast through this process of the PowerPoint. But establish the improved relationship between the Urbana Police Department, UPD, and the community by providing a fair and independent review of citizen police complaints, citizens' perspective. Provide a systematic means to promote and maintain good police-community relations, and ensuring that police officers are treated fairly. Protect officers' rights.
Well, we know that what is a police complaint? It's for our purposes, it's a written allegation of misconduct against a sworn Urbana police officer, and some examples of the types of complaints that might be filed and have been filed are rudeness or unofficer-like conduct, and so on, excessive force, discrimination, or profiling. And complaints may be filed, may be based on a first-hand account by either the person involved in the police incident or interaction, or by a witness to a police incident or interaction. And minors must be represented by a parent or guardian. And how do you file a complaint?
You complete an Urbana Police Action Compliant form. Forms may be obtained from the UPD and Urbana Human Relations Officer, the HRO. Forms may also be downloaded from the City of Urbana's website, and you have that there, and complaints must be signed and notarized.
And then we talked about where notarizing is available. We should know that when we make presentations. so that it doesn't seem to be any kind of an obstacle in there.
Right, we would let them know where they could go and get that.
It's down the hall.
Taken care of.
Todd?
Huh?
The notary's down the hall.
Yeah, we have notaries all over the building.
Right.
One thing I'm thinking is, do you want me to just include a bullet basically saying that it's available here in the
Yes,
city?
probably
We
so.
probably should.
Because
For free.
otherwise. it
Because if
looks
they're
like,
here
oh,
and they can
yeah.
do it, that would
Yeah.
probably save it. Because more than likely, I think the majority of the individuals would probably come here to get the forms.
It probably wouldn't hurt if we put in that it's available at no charge at City Hall.
Okay.
So nobody thinks they have to pay to do that.
And can that also be put, if they would go there to the website, can that be put on that also?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Time limits for filing a complaint. Complaints must be filed within 45 working days of the incident interaction. If the complaints are physically unable to file, complaints must be filed within 15 calendar days of the date on which they are physically able to file. Under no circumstance may a complaint be filed more than 1 year after the incident interaction. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. We did talk sometime when this process is followed, the working days, I think once, maybe twice, it wasn't the individuals that filed it. We found that we had difficulty coming together as a group to get that process started, if you remember. Am I correct in remembering that?
Oh, that would be the appeals.
Okay, was it
So
that the
yeah,
appeals that
this
we
is
had?
the
Yeah,
initial
that-
complaint.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it was the
not the-
appeals, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So we talked and made sure that we were trying to figure out, did we have something that slowed
We're not-
down that process at one time? But you're right, it was doing that appeals process. For sure. Okay, once a complaint is filed, the complaint will receive a copy of the signed and notarized complaint form. UPD will conduct an internal investigation into the complaint. Once the internal investigation is completed, the chief of police will forward notification of the departmental findings to the complaint via certified mail. The determination will contain an UCBRB appeals form.
That's it.
This is it. This is where we come into play.
Yeah.
Okay, the UCPRB appeals process, after receiving the chief's determination, the complainant has 30 days to submit an UCPRB appeals form. The UCPRB will conduct an appeals hearing within 45 working days. And at the appeals hearing, the complainant will have the opportunity to state why she or he disagrees with the chief's decisions. And I think this is where we have to be cognizant of the 45 days along with the individual's process too, so that we can help expedite the process. Okay. The appeals hearing, a hearing officer will preside, direct the meeting. The appeals hearings are closed to the public. Complainant makes statement, UPD makes statement. CPRB members may ask questions. CPRB members will deliberate. At the conclusion of the appeals hearing, the UCPRB will either, 1, agree with the chief's finding, 2, disagree with the chief's finding, 3, return the matter to the department for further investigation, or 4, decide that no finding can be made due of lack of evidence information. Okay.
Was there a question, could you go back?
Am I able to go back? Let's go here. There you go.
About number 2, wasn't there a question that we might want to ask for more information from the chief? Was that something we discussed?
Yeah,
that
that's
what
number
3 is?
3.
That's
Okay,
what
that
3
got
is.
turned into a new,
Return the matter to the department for further investigation. So if we disagree, then that could go, number 3 takes
Okay,
care of
okay.
going back
Right,
to the
right,
chief
right, right,
or
right.
whomever did the
Yes.
prior investigation.
so,
Ready to go ahead for it?
it should be clear that no retaliation against complainants will be tolerated. Harassment, retaliation, or retribution for filing a complaint or testifying on behalf of a complaint will not be tolerated. If a complainant believes that he or she has been subjected to harassment, retaliation, or retribution for filing a UCPRB complaint, the complainant should contact the Human Relations Officer for appropriate investigation and follow-up. And
You ready for that one?
you went back.
Did I go backwards? I sure did.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, both the complainant and the officer will be offered an opportunity to participate in the voluntary mediation process at no cost, available at any stage in the complaint process. This is just so that a complainant knows that they have the option of leaving the more formal process. For any reason they're uncomfortable with it, and they have the option of voluntary mediation. But that's only when both parties agree, in other words.
It's not something that I'm sure Chief
Automatic,
Conley or anyone
yeah.
would try to insist upon the individuals who's making the complaint. But if that should happen, then
So this is basically the information that we have already all agreed on, is kind of the basic ABCs of the board. And we feel that it's important that we are all very conversant with this, and that we don't write our own scripts when we're speaking in the community, since we're
I think that's a good point.
a body of the city.
Thank you.
and then the other information that follows is contact information, and then questions from the individuals.
Okay.
So the PowerPoint is ready anytime any of us have the opportunity or to make a community presentation, and we certainly.
Or when those individuals contact us like they've done in the past, we can just go and maybe attend some of those meetings and help with that. Yes.
I don't know if it's appropriate. You take public comments,
It's appropriate to
just
take
saying that.
public
You mind?
Normally, I would say no. But since it's a small and intimate group, what do you got?
Okay. Well, the question has been discussed previously, and I appreciate the PowerPoint in the process. But if you go back to the very first slide, and you address basically the process for people to file a complaint, okay, explain the complaint, blah, 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 maybe it's on the next page or something.
Next
But the
page, yeah.
Yeah, the question becomes one of, when a citizen comes to City Hall and they say they would like to file a complaint, generally, my understanding, they end up in Todd's office.
I think it varies.
Or, pardon me?
It varies.
It
A
varies.
lot of them
With
file
some
complaints in the
office or
police
whatever.
department, a lot of them don't.
Okay, so and the reason I'm raising this is that my understanding that when a citizen comes to file a complaint, that many times they don't end up making the formal complaint, even though they came with the intention of doing so. So there is no record of those complaints, because when the citizen talks to a staff member, whoever that might be, the police department or the Human Relations Office, they mediate the complaint before it's even filed. You see what I'm saying? And some people are saying that as a result, the person is, in some cases, before the process is even initiated, is circumvented because they're talked about how other avenues of addressing it, and maybe a different approach, or maybe we need to clarify, we can help clarify it for you without you filing a complaint. And I think there's a category you had identified that where they had come and made these, and they weren't formal ones, but they aren't listed as formal complaints as a result. And then there's no record of those, they're resolved in some way. So my concern is that when you look at the history of complaints that are filed, there's not a lot. And the question is how, in my mind, how many citizens actually come with a complaint that are handled some form or fashion that don't even get into this process because the person complaint is being addressed outside of the process, which is not defined, which is not clarified, which is not documented in terms of what's going on. And I think there's some question about, well, what are those? Or are people who want to file a complaint not being able to file one? So this sounds good, but there's a step right in front of there that seems very vague and confusing to people in the public. And how's that tracked, or how's that handled? Because there's some very strong things that there's not supposed to be any intimidation, you're not supposed to talk a person out of it, you listen, you record it, you document it. But I understand a lot of that occurs even before they came to file a complaint, but then walk out not doing it. And there's nothing there to describe how that occurs, or who is the person. Is it Todd or somebody else, or do we have 3 or 4 people in the city doing that? And do they handle it all the same, or is it all different? And how do we know what those cases are? And I know that's come up before, and it's been a concern. And so
Well, I have to tell you, it's not a concern of mine. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's a concern of mine.
Okay.
Because what we're attempting to do is to make sure that we have a positive relationship in terms of, so what you're saying is, why don't we have a record of those people that have a problem and it gets resolved?
Well,
That's really what you're saying,
that could be
okay?
somewhere. Make sure
So,
it's consistent.
so
and fair.
we need to make sure that we create complaints, because we need to create complaints. And my view of that would be, if someone has a concern or a problem and we can resolve it without going through the process, why is that?
That's not bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting that at all. Quite the opposite.
Tell me
No.
what you're suggesting.
I'm suggesting that there be some way, if a person comes into City Hall and say they would like to file a complaint against some action of an officer, who is the person that they go to? Todd suggested there's 2 or 3 people possibly they can talk to. That's fine. I have no problem with that. They can have that conversation. I think those people, though, that they're talking to ought to have some direction from the Citizens Police Review Board of documenting and recording and keeping a semi-sort of record that these are occurring, and the circumstances that led to some resolution or not, then goes to a formal complaint. My concern is that you have no way of knowing for sure if there are people that may be persuading people not to file a complaint and saying things that are appropriate. We have no way of knowing. I'm not suggesting, but there's no way of knowing that. I'm not against mediation. I would support the mediation, and I support the conversations, but it's the documentation and making sure the process is consistent between who's doing it and how do we know they're doing it the same, and that it's being handled in a way that the city wants it to be handled for citizen and police relations to improve, is all I'm saying.
But this is just my thought. I would think any time an individual come in, it's not going to be the same, because each individual coming in has a different purpose.
Absolutely.
So even if 2 people come in and see Todd, it's probably not going to turn out to be the same during mediation. Number one, because if I come in and see Todd, he will tell me, this is the process that we have if you have a complaint. His job is just to make sure that I understand what processes I have to follow through on my complaint, not to try to talk me out of the complaint. But during the conversation, if he so mentions, well, is this something to be handled during mediation? Because that is one of the processes within this. And if they think that can be handled, then we would start that mediation process. If it is so resolved during the mediation process, then the only thing I'm seeing in what you're saying is that we need to log that and say, Ivy Williams came in, her intent was to file a complaint, which is still a complaint because I'm still addressing my complaint, but it's not handled through this process where it gets to or could possibly lead to us. But it was handled through the process of mediation, which is even a lot quicker. Maybe the police, the officer, or maybe Chief Conley or Todd, however they handle that within this building, they were able to get those individuals together and take care of that process and handled it through mediation. Mediation can only occur with the agreement of the person that's wanting the complaint and the individuals that's part of it.
I don't think the mediation, what you're describing, what you have in here, prior and post, they're the same.
But, I mean.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's where we're at. We accept what you have to say, we will take it under advisement, but we will not continue the discussion.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's all.
And I think that there may be something that we can do with logging or something like that, I don't,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, someone walks in the front door and says, I got this parking ticket and I'm really, or I got a ticket and I'm really hunked off. One person talks to another, and someone says, you know what, I think we can make that go away. I don't know, is we need to have, someone came in because they were mildly unhappy, but we can talk that through. I don't have a problem with us bringing that up, okay? All right, but I think one of the things that I would feel more comfortable with, and I do agree with you, is that I feel far more comfortable saying that there is one go-to place, and we know that's where it's going. So it's going to go to Todd, and we know that, yeah.
So I just want to clarify, this is a discussion that's occurred in front of the city council. You've had it with the city council at the prior time when the city council reviewed the ordinance and they had the opportunity to change the language to reflect that. Number two, this topic is pretty far afield of the stated agenda item. So any action on,
Well, we're not going to take any action.
yeah, well, any action taken would not necessarily
Right,
be
but
appropriate.
I mean, legitimate concern, duly noted.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All right, next thing, under announcements, do you want to do these?
Sure, yeah. So the memo that I submitted had the information about the IDOT traffic stops. The only thing I'm going to add to the information in the memo, and it's very short, it just talks about the committee being asked, or the council discussing it in a study session on October 28th, is that it's my understanding that the city council will be discussing this issue on Monday. It's also my understanding that if there's to be any involvement of the CPRB or any other commissions for that matter, the council and the mayor will indicate that in those discussions, in whatever they decide to do. So I just wanted to add that. I think it's been before them in a committee of the whole, and then it was discussed again last night, and I think it's going to be discussed on Monday.
Well, if any of you want to indicate to the mayor your feelings toward this, feel free. It's not an agenda item that we can take action on, but certainly you're free to let your feelings be made known to the mayor. If you would like, I will certainly be happy to convey to the mayor that as a group, we're certainly willing to serve or assist in whatever way we can, depending on what your pleasure is.
I think that would be most appropriate and consistent with what we're all about.
Okay? Is that all right with everyone? I'll be happy to talk to the mayor and say that we're, okay. Ride-along reminders?
Yeah, just a reminder, there's a change in the person to contact. I mean, since it's the same as on here, and since the last time we had met, it's Sergeant J. Lotion.
Motion, okay.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't have, the first three numbers are 384. There's a typo. 2320. Sorry about that.
That's the office number?
Yes, for Sergeant Lotion.
Right, okay.
Also, I wanted to mention that we do have a CPRB vacancy that will need to be filled, so.
What ward is that, do you know offhand?
No, I
Okay.
apologize.
Well, we need to know that.
All right, I'll get that information, we'll get that out to everyone. So if you have anyone in mind to have them fill out an application and the mayor will look at it.
Fair enough.
Who left?
Grace is no longer in the jurisdiction. I'm sorry, Commissioner Mitchell is no longer in the jurisdiction.
She's left the building.
But she's still in the community, she's still.
Yeah,
She's very
we will
busy.
miss her greatly. I would like to just say that I, as a member, very much appreciated her role and her contribution.
I'd certainly be happy to second that. Anything else? Anybody else have anything? I felt it was important that we had a meeting, there was some discussion about, well, we ought to wait till after the first of the year, and I don't want people to think that we're just not having, you know, I don't like to have meetings for no good reason. I think you brought up some stuff tonight that's probably worth us getting together. I was glad to see that. And so I just thought it was inappropriate for us, even though we don't have everybody here, that it was important for us to meet. Okay? I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.